After a long period of embargo, the Cuban Army still has an extremely impressive array of weapons, many of which are upgraded and produced by Cuba itself. First of all, we must mention the specially designed anti-tank gun produced by the Cuban Army called Mambi AMR. This is an anti-tank gun with a length of up to 2.1 meters, designed and mass-produced by Cuba since 1980 and uses 14.5 by 114 mm ammunition. Next is the sniper rifle named Alejandro of the Cuban Army. This is also a product researched and produced by the country's defense industry, using 7.52 x 54 mmR ammunition and has been in service with the Cuban Army since 2002. Regarding tanks, the most modern main vehicle that Cuba currently has is the T-62 produced by the Soviet Union with the T-62M version. However, the most numerous in Cuba's service is still the T-54/55 tank with a force of up to 800 units. The PT-76 light tank also serves in the Cuban Army but in a rather small number, only about 50 units. Armored vehicles such as the BTR-60 have a fairly large number of troops in the Cuban Army, along with Cuba upgrading and improving the BTR-60 troop transport vehicle by equipping it with the turret of the T-55 tank or the turret of the PT-76 light tank. If not counting the weapons versions that Cuba has modified, the Army has only one type of infantry fighting vehicle, the BMP-1, with a quantity of about 120 units. The BTR-152, an extremely rare wheeled armored personnel carrier produced by the Soviet Union, is also in service with the Cuban Army with a quantity of about 150 units. In addition to the popular towed artillery supplied by the Soviet Union, Cuba even modified the 130 mm caliber M46 towed artillery version onto the chassis of an oversized and overweight truck, turning it into a self-propelled artillery and naming it Jupiter V. Photo source. The AT-3 Sagar anti-tank missile system was also modified by Cuba to become a self-propelled anti-tank missile system by placing it on the roof of the BTR-60 armored personnel carrier. The most popular self-propelled artillery in Cuba's service is the 2S-1 Gvozdika, produced by the Soviet Union. It is estimated that Cuba currently has about 60 of these 122 mm self-propelled guns in its inventory. The most modern and dangerous self-propelled anti-aircraft gun in Cuba's inventory is the ZSU-57-2. This is a self-propelled gun equipped with two 57 mm guns mounted on the chassis of the Soviet T-60 light tank. And finally, the self-propelled anti-aircraft missile system that Cuba modified itself based on the S-75 Dvina and S-125 Neva missiles. Both of these missiles were mounted on the chassis of the T-55 tank by Cuba to increase mobility.